This is GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers, that is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 419, part 2, entitled Compulsory FIPping Lessons for Middle School 9th grader girls. Continuing straight on. So they study further fluffy crap majors at university, ending up with a fluffy crap diploma that the economy does not value. These fluffy crappers will then screw around, in brackets, ride the cock carousel in her 20s. So that by the time she reaches 30, under the influence of the contraceptive pill and feminism, statistics show we'll have had some 40 different penises in her. In her 30s, she will become conscious that her biological clock is ticking and will decide that she had better start looking for some gullible manslave to parasite on, since her fluffy crap diploma does not enable her to earn enough money to be able to afford her own middle-class house that she would like to raise her kids in. So she goes looking around for some sap who is utterly ignorant of masculist ideas to parasite off, to live off his money while she raises her kids in the middle-class house that he pays for. A decade later, she is bored with her 41st penis husband. So with her 2 kids and the house that he has paid for, she drags him through the hated, fluffy, feminist-dominated divorce court system, stripping him of custody of his kids with a 90% probability and financially massacres him. She does this because she can, because several decades ago the monoconscious fluffy feminists took over the divorce courts, making them heavily in women's favour, not giving a shit about men, because these monoconscious feminazis saw men as the enemy, as toxic, as rapists, as fodder to be revenged, to be abused and robbed, and they did that with a vengeance. But what goes around comes around. So that now it is men's turn to liberate themselves. The 2020s are the decade of men's lib. Now it's our turn to liberate ourselves from our traditional male role of being a manslave to a woman. Masculists see themselves as abolitionists. Just as the abolitionists of the northern states of the US in the 1800s had a hatred of the slavers of Negroes in the southern states, so too do masculists have a hatred of slavers of men. That is, manslaving fluffy parasites, and aim to wipe them out, with bullets if necessary, so that we live in a FIP society in which all young women are socialised and educated to be FIPs, or pay a very heavy price of not getting a man. Hence will be loveless, sexless, babyless and spat at for being an immoral, parasitic manslaver, hated by masculists and men in general, as most men become influenced by masculist ideas and utterly reject fluffies, seeing them as vermin, to be severely punished so that they die out, so that manslavery in the 21st century dies out the way Negro slavery died out in the 19th century. So the masculists feel the strong need to educate young women into the critical importance for them of fipping up, or they will pay the horrible price of not getting a man, and will be cast out of their social circle for being a manslaving, fluffy parasite, to be spat at, utterly rejected, pariahed. So how can the masculists educate young women to fip up, to choose career competent majors? One way is to do what the politicians of the Soviet Union did, and that was to make the study of calculus compulsory for all 11th and 12th graders at high school for both sexes, so that women particularly could not use the excuse of not having the math prerequisites to study STEM majors and the math requiring professions at university. Another important way is to have compulsory FIPping classes at middle school for 9th grade girls. Why 9th grade? Because in many countries that is the last year that subjects are studied obligatorily. Most students, once they enter their 10th study year at high school, they begin to specialise. For example, choosing to study STEM type majors or to study fluffy crap majors. Masculists have no problem with young women studying fluffy crap subjects as minors, but not as majors, since if these young women do study fluffy crap majors in 11th and 12th grades, then that usually dooms them to become fluffies as adults, unable to earn good money, who then turn around to look for some gullible manslave to parasite upon, to leech upon, to suck the financial blood out of him as a manslave for decades of his life. No wonder masculists have such a hatred for fluffy parasites, fluffy manslavers, fluffy vermin. So what the masculists are envisioning is the creation of FIPping classes at middle school in the 9th grade, scaring young women, typically aged around 16, that if they don't FIP up by choosing to study career competent majors, then they will very probably pay a very heavy price. That is, they will not get a man. In other words, what the masculists are proposing here is the compulsory teaching in middle school of the main masculist ideas. That is, that masculism is essentially a rebellion by men against being manslaves to women. That women have to FIP up and pull their financial weight and not parasite off men's money or be severely punished by men by being forced to rot on the shelf, rejected by men, seen as being fluffy parasites, the enemy of the masculists, of men, and made manless as punishment. These compulsory FIPping of women classes need to be held in 9th grade so that very young women, that is girls, are sufficiently scared that they pour into the STEM fields at high school and college if they want to get a man. The masculists will be teaching them such masculist slogans as "No calculus, no baby," "FIP up or rot on the shelf," "Fluffies are immoral, parasitic, manslaving vermin." Young men will also attend these compulsory FIPping classes so that they too are influenced by masculist ideas, so that they can then play a critical role in the effective FIPping of young women. If a young woman chooses to be a fluffy crapper, you can imagine the reaction of the quality males in her class with whom she would love to hook up with towards her. These masculist influenced young men will see her for what she is, a future fluffy manslaver who expects to parasite off the money and labour of a man. So not surprisingly, she will be punished severely by her male classmates, who will not only not fuck her, they will not even acknowledge her presence. She will be utterly rejected, so will become, in capital letters, powerfully motivated to do what these quality young men want. So she will turn towards the hard option if she wants to get a man. The masculists aim to put a masculist group in every high school and every campus so that women are pushed into career competent majors, so they do not expect to parasite off men's money and hence oppress men, manslaving them for decades, which is a hugely greater gender crime than anything men do to women that the feminists complain so endlessly about. The masculists have a very powerful argument along these lines, which goes as follows. It was men who liberated women from household drudgery by giving women the pill, household gadgets, science-based medicine, a female life expectancy well into the 80s, so that even those women who stay at home for 6 years until their second kid is off to kindergarten and then return to work still have a career window of half a century. Thus the masculists argue, now that women can work, they must work. Anything else is manslavery, and manslavery will get women killed. Those women who defy the above logic will become the enemies of men, of the masculists, and will pay a very heavy price. They will be left manless and cast out of society, and not only by men, but by female masculists as well, since the masculists will also be telling young women that the main reason why young men continually refuse to give young women their sperm is that the fluffy feminists have taken over the divorce courts and made them so toxic for men that they have made marriage and paternity toxic for men, to the point that these young men utterly reject marrying and being fathers. Masculists tell these young women that if they want to be mothers, then they will have to vote with men, that is, the masculists, so that the gender laws are men-faired, especially in the divorce courts, the para-legislated, etc., so that men do not see marriage and paternity as toxic as they do today, and hence vote with their feet, avoiding marriage and paternity like the plague. Thus young women will learn to hate the fluffy feminist hypocrites as much as masculists do, and will join forces with men in hating the fluffy feminists. Young women will become female masculists, millions of them. So with both sexes hating the fluffy feminists, these feminists will feel a crushing heat on them and will soon be destroyed, so that the gender laws will be men-faired, the para-legislated, etc. The masculists have a major educational task ahead of them, which is why so many articulate literary masculists nowadays are making internet videos to reach out to the millions of men who want to master the intellectual tools to hit back at the hated fluffy feminists, so that these men can intellectually crush the awful hypocrisy of the fluffy feminists, so that feminists too become bi-conscious, or they will be ostracized from society. It's only a few years before not only will most men be familiar with masculist ideas, but so too will most women, once the women's magazines really start studying closely why so many quality men refuse to give women their sperm. The female journalists writing these articles in the women's magazines will effectively be spreading masculist ideas to millions of women, educating them why young women see fluffies as parasites to be punished, severely punished, since fluffies manslaved men for decades, which is a major hateable gender crime that masculisted men now utterly refuse to tolerate. Millions of men will absorb the masculist mantra that, quote, "Now that women can work, they must work. Anything else is manslavery. Fluffydom is manslavery. Manslavery is slavery. Slavery is hated. Masculists hate fluffies and fluffy feminists and aim to wipe them out. If a woman wants a man, she had better fip up, or she will rot on the shelf, despised, rejected, spat at, pariahed." With this powerful masculist threat hanging over women, women will pour into STEM. They will become female masculists because they want to have babies, which is what female DNA has been pushing women to do for millions of years. We men have the financial power. We are in a position to force women to fip up, since a fluffy can only be a fluffy if she can get her financial claws into some gullible manslave. But thanks to the masculists and the MGTOWs, the supply of such gullible manslaves is rapidly drying up. So if fluffies want to eat, they will be forced to fip up or starve, since most men will not be prepared to be leeched upon by a hated, immoral, parasitic, manslaving, bloody fluffy. Fluffies and fluffy feminists are thus doomed and deserve to die. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Manslaves to Women, and e-textbook of 410 plus masculist flyers for men's studies courses. Freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website. Ciao.